Right, so you join me once again in the MK8 GTI Clubsport with the owner. Welcome to the channel.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you so much. If you haven't seen yesterday's video, check it out. Yeah, absolutely loved it, and yeah, linking above for that. But this is going to be very much sort of like a, yeah, sort of a chilled out kind of video. I kind of always talk about my channel being a bit more of a community channel. I think the last few people that I've met sort of in the MK8 Golf R a few months ago, and in the MK8 Golf GTI Clubsport again, yeah, it kind of says to me exactly the type of audience I'm after. You know, just car enthusiasts, love the cars, kind of love the golfs. You know, there's no sort of like, yeah, it's just great, and yeah, a massive respect for people allowing me to drive their cars. So yeah, fantastic on that side.
No worries.
So yeah, let's get started. So I don't know. Yeah, let's see where we can start. So
maybe go from the fact that my move from the R to
let's
be a good starter.
Let's start with that. So you've owned Mark 7.5R before you've got this GTI Clubsport.
Yeah,
how have you found it? And basically, well, yeah, how long have you had the car as well, really?
Yes, I had the 7.5 in white silver with black Pretorias and the sunroof, which I fully spec'd out myself, had from brand new, and I had that for about 3 years.
Yep.
Before that, I had the Mark 7 in Lapis Blue, which was actually standard with the, I can't remember the name of the wheels, but it was the 18-inch wheels that come standard on the car. And then before that, I had the Mark 6 Golf R, which I loved. I had that in reflex silver, and before that, I had the Mark 5 R32. So I've had them for a while.
You have literally gone through every single one, which is my only Golf I've owned is that one sitting next to you.
Yeah, well, it's a lovely car.
The Mark 7. Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I love them, and I get that whole. That community feel that people do sort of know the history of them. You know, it goes back for so long.
Well, mine started with my dad, who had a it was probably a Mark III Golf GTI when I was a kid, and I just loved the whole kind of it was just a special car. It was just something about it, and yeah, just over the years I just sort of fell in love with them even more, and every 3 years just upgrade and get the new one, and actually it was a big thing for me going to the GTI after the R, because I love the 7.5R. You know, it was 310 brake horsepower, stuck to the road, loved the colour, but yeah, the Clubsport just kind of opened my eyes, and I just felt like going a little different this time. I felt like trying something new. And visually it appealed to me far more than the new R. Yeah. And I knew it was lighter. I knew it was two-wheel drive rather than four-wheel drive. So I knew I'd probably have, you know, a little bit of things, you know, stuff to get used to, with a bit more slip and stuff around the place. But it just makes up for it for me with just being a far more fun, sort of engaging drive, really. Yeah, and having just driven it as well, and actually being a passenger as well, it just gives you that idea of how. They are literally completely different cars. It is, you know, chalk and cheese. You've got such a, it's a lot more focused, but not to a degree where it's just unusable. You know, you couldn't even take it out on the road. Yeah, I think it's fantastic, to be honest with you. And I try to, particularly with people who are waiting so long for theirs. Yeah. You got an early car, didn't you? So yeah, I got mine. Well, I was actually called by the dealer. While we were in lockdown. It was beginning of January of this year, and they just had the first few come in stock, and yeah, he gave me a call and said, look, we've got a car that might interest you, and we'd quite like yours. So obviously they knew they could sell mine because it was a pretty decent spec. Yeah. And yeah, I saw the car. He did a video walk around, and I was just like, fell in love with it. it was just the colour linked with the red trim. And was it available then and there? It was available then and there. That's always a plus. And yeah, gave me a good deal on it, and I said yes please, and yeah, a week later I picked it up. And I think that's the main point as well. Timing is everything. For sure. I mean, obviously no one could have predicted what we're kind of going through at the moment, and how, well, obviously everything's pretty strange, but in like the car market, you know, it's
absurd how expensive some of these cars are.
Oh, it's a joke.
Like I don't think my Mark 7 Golf R should be worth as much as it is.
Yeah,
you know, in my mind, after 4 years and 30,000 miles, it should be worth like £5 less. It's not.
Yeah.
But if you can't get hold of it and people want them, you're kind of stuck.
At the end of the day, we're lucky that we have cars that are a fairly specialist market and people really value them.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of them around at the moment. So yeah.
Exactly, and I think not that you would, but if you actually wanted to, you could probably get your money back and some.
For sure.
And you've had it since January. You've put 3,000 miles on it. You've enjoyed it if you wanted to. So I certainly would say.
I actually checked. I could get a very good deal for this if I wanted to sell it.
Which is brilliant. It's good to it's good to have. You know, anything can kind of happen in your life, and it's good that a normal car, you don't have to buy like a limited edition Porsche that goes up in money. You can actually get a Volkswagen Golf, and it actually, which have always held their money really, really well. That kind of long-term ownership thing is always quite important because, yeah, life's too short to be having a car that's breaking down all the time that you don't really understand, doesn't work, no one likes, or you don't actually enjoy. You know, just because you save 10 grand and get something else. This kind of hits the sweet spot, and obviously being a club sport, you're getting it at the moment turned up to the max. And even I talk about the 45 edition, which I think equally looks as good. Akroprovich exhaust, although
I'm not so sure about the wheels for me on that car with the red.
Is it 19s as well, isn't it? So they're like what are they called? You can get them like alloy wheel protectors, aren't they? That's kind of what they look
sort of the red ring all the way around it. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's personal preference. And I think, you know, whatever floats your boat, really. And I think that, you know, you've got such a great choice. You've obviously got the GTI, the Clubsport, the Clubsport 45, the R. So one of those is gonna tickle you. You know?
It's endless. And I think for people who are more in the know and kind of know their cars, it's exactly the same as this.
Oh, it is.
It's identical, except you get an Akroprovich exhaust, which I've heard the exhaust on this, and
you get 45 written on, 45 or CS or something written on the back here. But apart from that, it literally is identical.
It's pretty much the same. And then obviously they say it's limited, but to be honest with you, all cars are pretty limited at the moment. I'm not, listen, I think it's a great car as well. I think the whole heritage thing, they come back to you, particularly as the years go on. But if you just want a car and you actually want to drive and enjoy it, normal GTI Clubsport will suit you just fine.
And I think the decal on the side of this is enough for most people. I think on the 45 it's a bit more, and then you're sort of getting into that territory where you're sort of it's a bit more than you know what most people want. You know, you can just get away with it on the normal Clubsport.
And I think they offer such a great range, really, because you look at, say, my R, it's pretty toned down to say the least. And even the Mark 8 R, if you don't go for the performance pack, we spoke about it just recently, it looks like an R line. They look
literally,
which can work perfectly for some people, because under the skin you're getting the same kind of car. It's still just as good. And
I'm a firm believer with this, is that it's up to the person. What do you like? Do you like a spoiler? You might not like a spoiler. You might want to be a bit more discreet, but still know that the car delivers the performance you want. You might want a car that you don't have to think about, so the four-wheel drive just handles so easily. Whereas, as you found out today, this is far more engaging. You have to be aware of what you're doing. You've got
to be on your toes. I've always loved front-wheel drive cars. I think it does enable that a little bit more engagement, a little bit more fun. It's torrential rain, as you can probably hear on camera and stuff like that. I came up in the R and it was fine. It's fine in this. You've got to you drive to the conditions that you kind of got in front of you anyway. You know, you can slide a little bit around and get a little bit of wheel spin. But it's
and you've got to think, how often are you literally flooring your car? And particularly if it's pouring with rain, you're probably going to be a little bit more considerate. But we were out in it. I floored it a few times. It's great fun. It doesn't have a massive problem. Yes, you get a tiny bit of wheel spin maybe at the start, but it really is fractions of a second that you're dealing with.
Definitely. And I guess something which hopefully this kind of video helps people out of is you can never really get an idea on camera what a car's like, how it feels, how it drives, how fast it actually is. I can tell you this car is quick. It feels quick, it goes quick. And I've been fortunate this year. I've driven quite a few nice cars. Drove a 992 Turbo S a couple of weeks ago, which was ballistically fast.
Wow. I'm
not sitting in this car going, oh, well, this is a bit toned down, you know. It's like, it's really, really good, and it is noticeably faster than mine. Fair enough, I've got a manual, so I'm all clunky with gears and stuff like that. But yeah, you feel that extra, you know, lack of weight. Yeah, it's just, it's unbelievable that they still kind of try and make these kind of cars.
Yeah.
I think they could have quite easily said, let's just do a normal Bogo GTI. We'll sell plenty of those. We'll still get the margin on it. Let's not confuse ourselves and move the power up too much. But they balanced it quite right, because I don't know what your thoughts are on it. They kind of made it confusing a little bit with the Mark 7, where they were like, it's 260 horsepower, over boost for 280. We don't want to step on the toes of the R. Now, I love that car, but they had a bit of a marketing.
Well, I think this time round they've actually been quite clever, and I think they've actually planned for the Clubsport to be the one. They've gone, this car's going to catch people.
Oh,
the GTI will, you know, that'll be for the people who just want to, you know, they like their GTIs, but they're not too fussed on the performance. But the Clubsport's going to cater for the market that want the speed, but they don't want the over amount of control that the R gives them with the four-wheel drive. They want something a bit more fun.
No,
I think they've done that on purpose, and they've been quite clever with the marketing.
No, I'm completely with you, and I think for your normal person who doesn't necessarily isn't as into cars and they just want to go far, I think the Mark 8R is fine. And I think even if you are really into your cars, it can still be good as well. But if you are a really serious driver, which I'm not saying I am, I'm not saying anything like that. And you were in a Mark 8 GTI Clubsport, and you then got into a Mark 8 Golf R, you're probably going to have more fun in this, and you're probably going to go a little bit faster. I don't know. I mean, the feeling you get with the drive of this, as the guys out there who have them will know, is that when you get going, you literally feel like you're gonna take off. It's because of that lightness compared to the R. It just gives you that feeling of you want to go. You know, it shakes around. And actually, funny enough, when I started this YouTube channel, what, 4 years ago now, I was generally quite down, because I was like, I came out of the fun hot hatch. It was like, what, just over 1,000 kilos, that Fiesta ST, loads and loads of fun. And I got into that and I was like, oh, it's a bit toned down. It's not really, you know, comparing it wasn't anything like that. The moment I drove this a couple of months ago, I'm driving it now, it just reminded me more closer to that. But at the same time, still being, oh, it's still a Golf. Oh, you can still do normal stuff. Still got 5 doors. I mean, as well, owners have got like, you can get like 50 mpg. Which is just, I mean,
just crazy.
300 horsepower. It's just crazy, and that's something you're never going to get 50 mpg in like a Civic Type R or something like that.
Well, no, and I think the Civic Type R is for a different person. I think it's, look, don't get me wrong, I like the Civic Type R. Look, you know, it looks great, looks fun. But you buy a car because you like the look of it. And for me, I like the Golfs. I like the shape of the Golfs. But you know, that's where it really comes down to, is what do you want? Do you want the more racy look?
100%.
For me, then you go for it. But for me, I compromise where the Golf is. It still looks racy to me. That spoiler, the red trim, the decals, the colour, it gives it that sportiness. But at the same time, if you do just want to be a bit more conservative, you have that option.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a sign of the times, because I know going on the Civic Type R, a lot of people were talking about the looks. A lot of people were talking about that spoiler, and it was just a bit spaceship, and it was all obviously functional to go fast. But then recently, like this year, they've released more of a toned down spec, the exact same car minus the spoiler. And I think that's kind of showing what people are asking for. Whereas I think you're already kind of here. The VW know it. They know who buy their cars. They know what they're after. And I know it sounds quite boring, but if you are on the commute, if you're in a really like a red racy car, and you're just trying to like change lanes or something like that, people have a different approach. They see this sort of like aggressive kind of thing. If I'm driving that, you know, I could be like a 70-year-old man just sort of going about my business. I like that, and you get kind of less attention for it. It is everyone's preference. I think the colour of this is awesome. It looks like a special bespoke kind of colour.
Well, that is what really sold it to me, because I love my white silver with the black Pretorias on the 7.5, and for me to get rid of that car, I needed a colour and I needed a cosmetic that was just going to stand out to me. And I looked at the new R and it wasn't doing it for me. I'm not going to go into that because I love Golf Rs, they're still amazing cars, I've had them for years, but visually for me this just literally just shone bright to me. It was just, I didn't have to think, it was just, please take my old Golf R, I want this car.
Yeah, and I think it's quite nice that as standard you get it with like the spoiler, you get it with, well yeah, we were talking about the wheels as well, they still look pretty good in 18s, whereas the R, there is a noticeable difference in looks from the performance pack to the non. You're getting an R line in looks for that kind of side of things.
And I think if I wanted to go for an R and I wanted to get, you know, the performance pack, I would then have to get it in a colour that I liked. I'm not a fan of white personally. I've had Lapis blue, and for me black is black. I would have wanted, you know, some fun factor in the colour choice, and you know what, I might go back to that when they bring out the 8.5, and I might even go back to an R if they have some nicer options and blah blah blah. But at the time, for me, this was the best option. It ticked all the boxes that I needed ticking. It's
weird, isn't it? Because it's like, in terms of like where we are in the world, you know, things aren't so great. Let's be honest.
Oh, it's awful.
And it has kind of hit the sweet spot. Both the R and the GTI Clubsport, to be fair, they're both performance cars. They're both pretty fantastic. When I first kind of started documenting a little bit about it, I was like, price-wise, it's asking quite a lot. You know, nearly 40 grand. And well, today you'd love to get one for that, to be honest, because they're so high. But it is worth it. You do notice what they've kind of done, the engineering kind of side of things. And inflation anyway, that's just where cars are. I think people were telling me that old Mark 7.5, they were going for close to 40 anyway, the old one.
I'd be really interested to know how much mine went for.
I bet it went for,
I mean, literally the guy, I left it with them, I think it went on their site for about 10 hours and it had gone.
Well, that's the thing, and I'm laughing as well because it's absolutely torrential outside, and it's fun. So I'm glad we've finished our drive. And again on the four-wheel drive thing, because a lot of people, and myself included, are like, in the wet, you know, it does work, and it does. It is really great, and it's more fun in the wet. But it doesn't help you slowing down. It doesn't do anything in terms of like that kind of regards. And just because you can get up to speed quicker than everything else, you've then got to brake more early because it's wet, because it's more difficult, and it gives you that overconfidence, which can be a bad thing to some people.
Absolutely.
In some cases. Whereas this, listen, like if we put our foot down now, you're going to be spinning. You'll be laughing as you're doing it, but you're not really going to be going anywhere. And that it is hard to kind of everyone kind of has their own opinion of what they want. But don't discount the GTI Clubsport. It's the biggest thing that I would say, because that's what I did. I was sitting there before, like, I didn't understand it. I understood a standard GTI and I understood an R, but Clubsport I was like, just go for an R. Now I'm completely like, well, actually,
there's a bit more thinking to be done.
100%. And I think, just like I was speaking to you before, looking back, if I had the option, I mean, looking back with the Mark 7s, the reason why I got my Mark 7 Golf R was because it was cheap, to be honest with you. It was much cheaper than the 40th Clubsport. It was like £6,000–7,000, and I was like, well, four-wheel drive, three-door manual, I'm pretty happy. 300 horsepower, no overboost, not rubbish, and yeah, it's great. It's brilliant. I couldn't fault it. I absolutely love it. But now, for people in the Mark 8 kind of camp, it's like, well, actually, a Clubsport is cheaper than an R. And on the used market as well, because they've been out for a little bit longer, you can time it right and you can get a deal. You know, ultimately you weren't to know when you got it in January that things were going to change in the market. Timing being absolutely everything. But I can't, you know, it makes me smile so much because I know what's going to happen in 5–10 years. We're just going to be sitting here in an electric car, and we're not really going to have much to talk about.
Nope.
It's going to be...
It's all going to be a little bit boring.
The Mark 9, we think it's going to be hard. They're not going to be able to maintain the AAA engine. Would they be able to combine it with some sort of hybrid? You know, particularly in
which is what they've been talking about for the last couple of years, but it's just whether, I guess, price-wise, if they can do it and still make the car sort of affordable for the people that buy these cars.
Well, and that's another good point. Like, it's a people's car.
Yeah.
So it's got to be affordable to the people. I won't disclose what you kind of paid for it and all this kind of
I
stuff.
mean,
And
at the end of the day, though, 40 grand is starting to push out of that category, isn't it?
It's huge. It's huge. Yeah. You know, you're looking at we've said second most expensive purchase. You know, if you want to put a deposit down on a place, you're paying. Well, if you're fortunate enough, you can pay that kind of money, and to get a place. So you know, you've got to be sure on what you're doing.
Yeah.
For me, a one car, it's got to do so many different things. So, and both these cars kind of sitting here, whether you know, ultimately, the Mark 7s are cheaper than the Mark 8, so you've got the benefits of that kind of side of things.
Yep.
They're fantastic cars. This does feel more 2021.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the interior is...
Well, it's all the electronics, like, you know, you've got all the sensors, lane assists, and it really does, after a while, make a big difference. You get very used to these things. And the infotainment system, like, as Sam's seen, like, there's been no problems with the gears in this car, the gearbox. The infotainment system has no lag for me. I've never had that problem. So I think there's probably been a bit of luck involved with what car. Like, mine was one of the original cars that came into the country. I don't know, they obviously did a software update when they came in.
Which is weird, isn't it? Because people have been saying that there's been issues, which we are, you know, I haven't experienced any issues in this car.
The only issue I had was, and I took it back a day later, was the locking system, the keyless entry. It was just very temperamental, and they said that was a software update. I left the car with them, and it was done. And
they sorted it out and they fixed it, and that's the thing. And again, when I went from my ST, that was one thing I was kind of like, I didn't want all the overcomplication. I just want to get a car, does its job, and it just works. I mean, my car still has a key; it's not even keyless.
Yes.
And I kind of like that simplicity.
Yeah.
This, it's kind of like, I think it's as good as you're going to get before things become you are just a passenger in your own car.
Totally.
The next step now is autonomous, electric, quiet, you know, read a book while you're driving on the M25.
And I now have a routine, you know, which I'm in. I get in the car, I turn off the lane assist, I turn off the traction control. I just do that. It takes me 10 seconds every time I get in. I'm waiting for the rev counters to come down anyway, so I'm all set. So you just have to get used to it. But when, you know, now when you do start getting used to those things, if you had that taken away from you, you do feel like you're in a much older car.
Yeah.
So you get used to having these electronics now.
And it's weird because I bang on about cars all the time, whether it's on my channel or it's just like research I do, just because I'm generally interested in it. But the amount of people I speak to and I'm like, oh, you know, you played around with traction control on this, and if they've got a performance car, say like an M2 or something like that, haven't got a clue what I'm talking about.
No.
And I'm just like, you're missing out on the whole of your car by not doing it. So when I drove it, the other owner's car a couple of months ago, I left all traction aids on and stuff.
Yep.
And even in the dry, it's just like it's grabbing at the wheels.
Feel it's grabbing.
And I'm like, I've got my foot down. I was just like, well, this is.
It's
crap.
not letting me drive.
Yeah, and the positives on the R is with traction control on, it's just, it flies. It's just it's gonna absolutely get going.
Yes.
Turning it off in here, it's brilliant.
But as you saw here, like, we were in the worst conditions. Traction control completely switched off, and we just got a tiny bit of wheel spin. I mean, it wasn't a massive amount. I mean, and I have to say, in the dry weather, I very rarely notice any wheel spin, and I drive the car. You know, I have a good time in my car, so. You know.
100%. I mean, I'm literally going to be swimming home because it's that torrential outside.
Yeah.
But this is definitely a car, and I slightly mentioned it before. If you were to put, say, like Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s on, it would love it.
It would love it.
You know, forget about your fancy wheels or your increasing the power. We're pretty much on the same page. I spoke to you a bit before. You know, they've done a lot of engineering into this car. Just enjoy it, leave it as it is. Tyres are a big thing. This has got like Bridgestone Potenzas, so it's road based, but still a little bit of performance, which works fantastic on the road. You know, it's great. But if you did ever want to do a track day, and there are some nice tracks in the UK, or you know, if you ever wanted to, obviously, it's your pride and joy.
Yeah.
Cup 2s, it's a car that would be able to deal with that kind of tire.
Yeah.
It's proper hunkered down, because it doesn't even have a mechanical limited slip diff at the front. I don't think. I think it's all electronic. I
don't know technical
stuff.
Yeah.
I'm the same with you. I'm not like as you know, massively into it. But I think
the difference, I think there is something in the slip diff that really helps the car operate how it does.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely planted. Yeah, absolutely planted.
Yeah.
And if it
the steering's so engaging, like you know.
And that's another thing. The steering, it's like, it's depending what cars you've driven before, you can feel it a bit disconnected, because it's just the way it's all electric now. Yes. But the main critical part is it goes where you want it to. You put it into that apex, and you know, some unbelievable roads here. And you know, again, check out the video I've done before, and I might do some videos of just other clips of this. I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's just brilliant. And the fact that I was driving at like 30-40 miles an hour, and I was just like, this is awesome.
The bangs. You're driving at 40 miles an hour in second gear to get the bangs. It's
just hilarious.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be able to do that in a Golf.
No.
And you can, and you definitely wouldn't get that sort of noise out of a standard GTI.
No.
I know firsthand you don't get that noise out of an R. I don't know what the Acroprova exhaust does, but then you're $3,000 in straight away for something like that. Obviously with back orders
save your money.
Save your money. Get a set of decent tyres.
Put it on some petrol.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, on petrol, I can't believe how expensive it's gone up. I don't know what it's like around this. I'm sure it's exactly. It's like, if you want to.
I try not to think about things like that.
Yeah, it's like,
you know, you don't buy cars like this to think about petrol.
Yeah, that's true. I think.
No, talking about petrol, the economy on the car is fantastic. I mean, it's really good. I mean, I only do local driving, and I'm not doing loads of miles, but yeah, I'm only in the petrol station once every sort of 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, and that's pretty fine for most people. And I know if you really wanted to drive sedately, or if you're going up, I don't know, if you're driving to Scotland or driving to Wales or something like that,
eco mode or whatever,
you will literally get like 500 miles to a tank, no problem. And I've done it in the R, which, being a manual, it's got really short gearing, so you've got like in 6th you're sitting at like just under 3,000 revs at 70, so it's just drinking fuel. Whereas this 7-speed DSG, I think, and it's lightweight, so that every step you're going, not only do you get the better performance, but you're saving fuel. And I gather, you know, most of the people in the world, they're not thinking, oh, these tiny little things, but it's just the sort of stuff I think about, particularly for long term. I like my cars kind of long term, you know. And we, you know, briefly spoke, you know, what would I kind of change to something like this? I definitely kind of consider it, particularly now with a lot of remote working and the more possibility of remote working as well. It's like, I still want a car to do a car things, which 5 doors, big boot, technically a bigger boot as well, because it hasn't got the 4-wheel drive. But fun, like decent amount of fun.
And I think in here with the GTI, and again, I said to you with the cosmetics of compared to the R, like the R's all blue and stuff. Like these are nice. Got the red sort of like stitching. It just looks a bit sportier to me. And, you know, red and black tends to give you that impression.
And the Germans struggle at that, don't they? It's that whole, it's too good, isn't it? It's too too ergonomically sensible and all these kind of things. But touches of red do help.
They do.
Just bring it a little bit more alive. And I mean, the seats are exactly the same. I love the seats. One piece, really hug you in. You know, you can literally fling it round. Really comfy. Steering wheel, I like what they've done with that in terms of being able, I've said it before, with sort of like the whole sort of 9 and 3 kind of holding. Listen, it's not a full-on sports car per se, but you're not a million miles off. And I mean, compare it, if you compared this to say like a Cayman, say like a base 718 2-litre 300 horsepower, in the real world this is probably going to be quicker. Okay, if you take it out on track, and you're probably going to get more out of a mid-engine chassis and all that kind of stuff. And the compromises of not having the space, not having the seats, having to obviously pay more because it's a sports car, residuals are all a little bit all over the place. No one fancies buying a Boxster in the winter or we're August, by the way, and it's like
feels like we're in November. Yeah,
it's just
literally.
It's just absolutely horrendous. And yeah, the jack of all trades. And instead of having a 2-car garage, just put your money into 1 car.
Yeah. and I think this one, you know, to sum it up from my end, I think, you know, after watching, I watch hundreds and hundreds of videos on all the different cars and stuff, and this just has a combination of a lot of good things. And it's proven that now. All you need to do is to look on YouTube and see how it's done against other cars, and you know, it's beaten the Civic Type R in a drag and stuff, and it's got a lot of positives to it. And it's just, I think for me, as an all-round fun sports hatchback, I think you're going to struggle to do much better.
No, I completely agree. And I think for a front-wheel drive car, I don't know what more you can't be pushing more power really than 300, because
it'd be dangerous, and where you're going to use it,
and it's so much wasted power. It's not going to do it. So you're at that right balance. So I don't know what they're going to do in terms of the Mark 9. What, a GTI Clubsport electric? Are they going to use the ID3 and put that more into a GTI kind of style? I don't know, but I think enjoy these cars while you can.
Because God knows what's coming next.
Yeah, we're just going to be, if you're really into your cars, it's not going to be good news. Particularly in the UK with all our sort of legislation, rules and stuff like that, sort of messing things up. But yeah, you know, if you're not necessarily into your Golfs, and I assume that you probably are if you stayed this long into the video, don't have that stigmatism of, oh, it's just a Golf, it's just boring. It couldn't be further from the truth. It's so exciting. The noise is great. Those pops and bangs, that's the kind of added kind of touch over, say, like an R, and the dynamics, and it still absolutely shifts. I mean, to be honest, we could literally talk for like an hour. We were talking a lot before, and I've done it the same with a lot of people who I've kind of spoken to before. And if you do want to reach out, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. And see if we can work something out as well. But I hope this kind of gives you a little bit of a behind the cars kind of ownership kind of understanding. You know, if you like me over lockdown, watching YouTube, watching these cars. I mean, we couldn't even drive a car. It was like illegal to drive a car at one point in the UK. Crazy. And I'm like sitting there with my Golf R just thinking, can't even go out.
No.
But yeah, now that we are allowed outside, this car is certainly one worth sort of testing out and trying. Don't rule it out. But same thing, it's all personal preference. But yeah, I think we're about half an hour in. I could talk to you for a lot longer about this kind of stuff. To be fair, we probably still are going to chat about it all. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity as well to sort of try it out. Colour looks brilliant. Again, I'm going to be driving home just going, how can I make the numbers work and step into a Mark 8, because it is a great car, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it for a long time to come as well. But awesome,
nice one. Cheers, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
Cheers, guys. Enjoy your cars.
Enjoy them. See you again next time. There we go.